So back in the late 80s, we were introduced to Chucky, one of the most iconic and unique horror villains of all time. 7 more movies, and 37 years later, and the Child's Play franchise has been a wild journey with some all-time great horror moments, but also some pretty bad entries in the franchise as well. So let's go ahead and rank all 8 movies in the Child's Play franchise. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Mad Blood. Now, first of all, let me know down in the comments down below how you rank the Child's Play franchise. I would love to hear what you guys think. So this franchise originally started as basically a dark satirical look into children's marketing in the 80s. Don Mancini, who wrote the original movie, wanted to kind of just take a look at the effects on marketing to children in the 80s. You had things going on like the Cabbage Patch riots in the 80s. His dad was an advertising executive. So all of those different things combined into inspiring this franchise, Child's Play. So then originally the name of the Child's Play franchise was actually Batteries Not Included, but because of that movie that was conceived by Spielberg came out a year before the Child's Play franchise in 1987, they changed the name to Blood Buddies, and of course it became Child's Play. And like I said, this franchise is a wild up and down journey that covers a lot of different decades and a lot of different changes in the genre, and things get pretty crazy along the way. But anyways, enough of all that. How the hell do I rank the entire Child's Play franchise? Well, coming in last place at number 8 is going to be Curse of Chucky from 2013. So yeah, Curse was released 9 years after Seed of Chucky. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of ushering in a new era for this franchise. This movie looks a lot different than Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, and especially the original Chucky's. And in a lot of ways, just has so many things that are different. I mean, yeah, they do tie in a lot of things that we saw in those original movies. They show us some prequel stuff. They tie in some characters that we've seen before and all of that. But so yeah, this is the first time in the franchise that they go the straight to video route with a pretty low-ish budget. And my feelings on that, especially with a franchise like Child's Play that is so iconic. I mean, you go to Spirit Halloween, you still see Child's Play stuff all over the place. I was just out trick-or-treating with my kids the other day for Halloween, and there were still Chuckies all over the place. So my feeling on that is, if you don't have the production team that truly believes in the project, if you don't have the budget, it's like, just leave this on the shelf for a while and wait it out. And I get why they wouldn't do that, whether it's to make more money or whether it's just to attempt to use an idea that you think is really, really good. I just think there's no reason we should have gotten a straight to video Child's Play slasher movie after the movies that we had before this that were very mainstream in a lot of ways, especially with the character of Chucky being as mainstream as that character is. But this movie has a lot of flaws. Now, the last few movies that I have on this list, there was a part of me that kind of jumbled them back and forth. I could put them in any sort of an order, just depending on my mood, but I do feel confident that for me personally, Curse is my least favorite movie in this franchise. And Curse actually does have its fans. There's a lot of people that actually do enjoy this movie. They enjoy that it's kind of isolated. They enjoy the kills. They enjoy the introduction to some of these new characters. And some of those new characters are actually Brad Dourif's daughter plays the main girl in this movie, Nika. And kind of the story behind Curse, if you've never seen it before, I'm sure a lot of you guys have, but it's basically like this story of many, many years ago. Charles Lee Ray was a family friend of this family, Nika's family, and her mom in particular, and actually was in love with her mom. Obviously her mom did not reciprocate because he is a weird fucking guy, but still, so turned her down. So Charles ended up murdering Nika's dad and then kidnapping her mom, who was pregnant with Nika at the time. Some point during that whole thing, stabs her mom in the stomach, which ends up paralyzing her. That's why she's paralyzed in this movie. And then the cops come and arrive to wherever he's keeping her mom. And then that leads into actually the shootout that you see in the original Child's Play. So like I said, there's some prequel stuff with that. And that's a good idea on its surface. Yes, I would love to see like the early stages of Charles and what happened that led to the shootout that we saw in the original Child's Play. Maybe some of the murders he did earlier on before the original Child's Play movie that gave him the nickname of the Lakeshore Strangler. On paper, that's a good idea. But why did it have to be in this movie? Now, this movie, again, is pretty low budget. I think it was made for like $5 million or something like that. It's pretty isolated. I mean, 95% of this movie probably takes place in this house, this like Victorian house, which I guess is okay, but it's definitely the most isolated and one-dimensional, in my opinion, movie in this entire franchise. And yeah, we get introduced to a lot of new characters, not just Nika. And Nika didn't love the idea to, okay, we're gonna put her in a wheelchair. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I know where this is gonna go. Also, you're just trying to make our character have something, so we immediately have to kind of empathize with her. But for me personally, I just think it feels kind of cheap when movies will give somebody like a hearing aid, which we also see in this franchise, or some sort of a disability, just to force feed us empathy and try to go about it. Just doesn't really work for me also in this, but maybe that's a little bit of a nitpick. I also think in this movie, the kills are just okay. From Chucky, you know, we get that kill there with like the hot nanny when Chucky pours the water over the floor into the socket. She's, I think, on a laptop and the cord is in the socket, and that ends up like bursting her eyeball out and killing her. A little ridiculous, but not great by any means. But probably my favorite kill is not the goriest kill in this movie, but it gives us the best one-liner in the movie, and it's with Nika's sister. She's in the attic and she finally runs into Chucky in that moment. And she's like, holy shit, this thing is actually real. It's actually talking to me. And Chucky gives her the line of like, your eyes look a lot like your mother's. They're too fucking close together. And then he stabs her in the eye. That part's pretty funny. But shortly after that, we get moments in this movie like Chucky, that moment there when he's walking down the stairs towards Nika, who, you know, can't walk. She's on the ground, doesn't have her wheelchair, you know, all that thing, which is another tangent I could go on about, like I already mentioned a second ago. But that part right there, it looks like a 90s cartoon. It literally looks like an episode of Rugrats. It is so bad. And I get it's quick, but it's like, holy shit. How far has this Child's Play franchise fallen? I'm thinking that in that moment right there. And then at the end of the movie, is it shocking? Is it surprising? Okay, a cop shows up and everybody's massacred. The only person left is this Nika lady. She has a bloody knife in her hand that she will not put down. The cop is like, okay, it clearly seems like you did this. What's your story? Oh, this doll killed everyone and tried to kill you as well. Yeah, that story is really going to stand up in a court of law. So of course she gets, you know, put in this prison mental hospital situation. And that leads us into the next movie. But we do get a little post-credit scene with Andy there as an adult, which is kind of cool, showing Chucky's head, and then he blasts Chucky in the head. A little bit of a hook there, like leading into possibly the next movie, but still with Curse, I think the acting is not good. And one thing too, with this movie, as they were conceiving Curse, they wanted to originally lean into the darkness of the original 3 movies, the horror elements. But I feel like in the end, with the final product, it's like, what are you talking about? This movie is more like cheesy, schlocky, and campy. You were trying to make a scary movie? In a low-budget horror movie, and there's so many low-budget horror movies that we love. Of course, this is the horror genre. There's so many that are great and silly and cheesy and campy. And with this, they should have just leaned into that. I think they just tried to make a serious movie that just ended up being pretty damn bad. And every time I kind of need to go back and rewatch this movie for a video or whatever have you, I pretty much dread it because it's just not good at all. All right, and coming up next as my second least favorite movie in this entire franchise is, yes, going to be the Child's Play remake from 2019. And surprisingly, okay, if you've been around my channel for a little bit, you know that I'm pretty damn lenient on remakes. I actually love a lot of remakes in the genre. Yes, I'm a fan of the Elm Street remake. Sue me. But yes, of course, I love the Texas Chainsaw remake from 2003. Yes, I love the Friday the 13th movie from 2009, which is kind of an encapsulation of the first 4 movies. Absolutely. I'm actually a big fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007 as well. I mean, Tyler Mane in that movie is so damn good, and those movies are a perfect example of taking some of the things from the original, modernizing it, and adding your own niche into the franchise. For example, when it comes to the main villain in some of those movies, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, you got Tyler Mane playing that character, you have Derek Mears playing one of those characters as well, and they're different from the original portrayal of Jason and Michael in those franchises, right? Much bigger, this more menacing buzzsaw character who's fast, you would never ever want to come across in a million years. They are very, very different than the original iconic portrayals of those characters, but they're different in their own great way. They stand on their own in the franchise, whereas in this Child's Play movie, I just feel like it doesn't. It does everything the original Chucky did in this franchise, especially in those first 3 movies, and just does it worse. I mean, of course, we don't have Brad Dourif back. We got Mark Hamill voice acting the character, which is, I guess, okay. I mean, Mark will always be a legend because of Luke Skywalker, but yeah, it's sort of creepy at times, but not great by any means. I mean, the wittiness of the character, the humor of the character, which is very similar to Freddy Krueger and is the niche for Chucky in a lot of ways and makes that character so iconic, is completely gone. And speaking of that, this movie was supposed to originally come out during that whole remake craze in 2010, but because Brad Dourif didn't want to come back to voice act the character, then it kind of went into development hell, and then of course came out in 2019. But I'll talk about this more kind of as this ranking goes along, especially with like Cult and some of the other movies, but I just don't like the look of this movie either. It is just so squeaky clean and modern and digital looking, especially considering the fact that we're in this urban environment, we're in this city. I much prefer it when they go back to like the original Child's Play, the grit and the grime of that, or even like Candyman, that type of a portrayal of a unforgiving big city environment. I like that. And in this, I just don't like it at all. I'm not a big fan of this whole like best friend, your child's best friend doll thing that we've seen in modern horror with movies like Megan and Companion and things like that. And there's varying levels of how good those movies are, but this whole thing on AI and technology, basically just pumped out by Blumhouse for the most part, movies like Afraid and some of the other movies, it's honestly a subgenre in horror that I don't like at all. And if it didn't exist, I think the genre would be better in my eyes because of it. It's kind of just a waste of time. The majority of the movies are completely throwaway movies that are just there to make money, in my opinion. And now, again, I'm not talking about movies like Terminator, like I've mentioned before, which plays on technology going too far and taking over the world and fighting against us in a perfect way. The original Terminator, one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies ever made, without question. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this stuff. Also, just the look of Chucky. I mean, look at the poster for Chucky. I mean, look at this thing. It's not great. I mean, it's kind of creepy, I guess, but not great by any means, like I said. Also, just the origin of the Chucky character. This is a remake. We know the origin of the character in the original. That dark and pretty interesting origin. This serial killer who's well known, has been on the loose, now somehow knows like voodoo magic or something. So right before his human form is about to die, he's able to put his soul into this creepy little doll. How? What? Like, what happened with that? That's kind of interesting and unique. Whereas in this movie, it's just kind of like this, it's this assembly line worker who hates his life and hates his job, just turns off the safety protocols on the doll. It's just way less interesting, you know? It's just pretty cut and dry. There's no real ambiguity or anything else you want to see there. Like the origin to the original Chucky, you could make a whole movie on the origin of Charles Lee Ray and how he knows this stuff, how he goes about doing this stuff, along with the other murders in a prequel. They could definitely dive into something like this, whereas in this movie, it's like a 2-second throwaway moment. Yes, it's important to the story, but it's not interesting. I also think one of the things that hurts the remake is, yeah, the family that we're following is okay, I guess, but like, you don't empathize or really root for near as much as the original family in the original Child's Play at all. The acting is fine and all of that, but it's just not all that interesting to me. I do think they did an okay job, though, making the mom's boyfriend a villain. He's a horrible actor, but just as like a villain in this story, that part's okay, which then leads into a pretty damn brutal kill, which is pretty satisfying of that guy. You know, he's cheating on his wife with her, and she doesn't know about it either. And then, you know, Chucky pulls him off the ladder. It compound fractures his legs, and then his head gets chopped the hell up. And then we get that line, "This is for Tupac." But it's also like that line is kind of funny, but he's just repeating because he's literally a robot. He's just repeating one of the lines that a kid told him earlier in the movie. But again, the wittiness from Chucky is completely gone. I also think the ending of this movie, yeah, it's got a little bit, I guess, like Evil Dead kind of a thing at this big store. What is it called? Like Zedmart or something. But the ending's just not that great. It's kind of like Cult of Chucky because he's recruiting these other things, but it's not a soul. It's just him using the software of these things and integrating himself into their technology to bring them to life and do what he wants. Drones are flying all over the place. Yeah, it's kind of crazy and a little bit bloody, I guess. But then there's a final fight between Andy and who has a hearing aid again, like a crutch, like with Nika. It's like, okay, you're just throwing a hearing aid on this kid, and it's just to try to make him more interesting, I guess, but it's not all that effective either. But the ending, I just don't think it's all that great. So yeah, the Child's Play remake, I think is not a good movie at all. It is a movie I have no interest in rewatching ever. Only time I will rewatch it is for a video like this. But probably the only reason I don't have it in, one of the only reasons I don't have this movie in last place, and I do have it above of Curse, is just because I think the remake is more competently made. I think they check the boxes of just a decently on its face level, well-made movie, even though the story choices, the creative choices, and the look and all of that I think is truly horrible. It's just a better made movie than Curse. Okay, and moving right along to one of the most controversial movies in this entire franchise, and also one of the worst movies in this entire franchise. This is truly a bad movie. But coming in at number 6 is going to be Seed of Chucky from 2004, on the heels after Bride of Chucky, which is a pretty damn popular movie in this franchise. They weren't able to really catapult after that and really build off of that because, like I said, this is a bad movie, but there are some things in this movie that have some nostalgia just for me, and the fact that it came out in 2004, that adds a little something. Just that era in horror I do enjoy. But I mean, come on, I am not surprised that Universal told Don Mancini when they saw the script for this movie, they're like, no, we're not interested in making this. We thought you were going to make something that's scary again and interesting again. Like, they were not interested in jumping into like the gender dysphoria stuff that they throw into this movie, which seems like it's just randomly tossed in and doesn't really have too much of a reason to even exist. But with that said, you know, when Seed does start out, I think the opening to this movie is actually kind of good. We're in this like Victorian house. It seems like it's in England because of the accents, but it's a big ass house. And we got like this POV shot of something creeping around the house. Of course, if you've seen Bride, you probably know what it is, but there's some ambiguity. It's like, how did this thing get here? What's going on here? And it's brutally murdering these people. I think it's filmed pretty well, and it's kind of, like I said, pretty like bloody and brutal in that moment. But also one thing with Seed too is, yes, Bride of Chucky is like building off of that whole post-Scream era. All the studios were like, damn, Scream, people really enjoy this stuff, so let's do something like that. But this movie goes way more meta than ever. I mean, they are literally making a Chucky Tiffany movie within this movie, which does make sense. I mean, if somebody had a story of these killer dolls doing these crazy things over and over with several people saying that it happened, of course Hollywood would try to make a movie on that. So that part does make sense. Also, after that, we get that pretty bloody scene with like the effects guy with Tiffany and Chucky cutting that guy's head off, like blood is spraying all over them, which turns them on because it shows you a little bit more of their like weird, sick, and twisted relationship. But I do think one thing that definitely hurts Seed of Chucky, among many things, is yes, it's great to have Jennifer Tilly back in this movie as both Tiffany and also herself, but I think we're spending way too much time with this whole Jennifer Tilly trying to navigate life in Hollywood. It's like, you're trying to be way too much like New Nightmare, but New Nightmare is way better than this movie. If you've seen that movie, you probably know what I'm talking about, but yeah, we spend too much time with that. We're throwing rappers into the mix, which makes sense for this era, I guess. I also think a miss with Seed of Chucky is, yeah, we get some decent kills in this movie, but for being a crazy, wild, weird journey, they should have given us some better kills. Like I said, there are some okay ones. You know, like I said, the special effects guy getting his head chopped off. We get that moment there with the paparazzi guy getting his face melted, which looked practical. That one was okay, but I also think at the end of Seed, it's just a weird ending. We do this time jump. We're with Tiffany and her two twins that she has now, or Jennifer Tilly and her two twins, the two little ginger twins. She was artificially inseminated, I guess you could say, with a turkey baster. And it's like their birthday, and then Chucky's arm is in one of the boxes and it jumps out and grabs one of the kids. It is just a weird, dumb ending to cap off a weird, dumb movie. And one of the biggest reasons, though, I do have this movie above the remake and above Curse, honestly, is really just because Brad Dourif is back in this movie technically, and also Jennifer Tilly is back in this movie, which, yeah, I guess adds something to a bad movie. But yeah, anyways, Seed of Chucky coming in at number 6 for me. Again, a pretty damn bad, painful movie. All right, and up next at number 5 is going to be Cult of Chucky from 2017. And what I'm about to say, I know is going to sound kind of cliche, but when you hear people talk about, oh man, I hate how modern movies look, and I've said that before with some movies, this movie, though, I feel like is kind of the definition of that. Like, I hate the way this movie looks, especially in a Child's Play franchise, which is at its best when it looks gritty and grainy and has that film look to it, and it's kind of dark. Like, this movie is so bright and vibrant and digital looking and too perfect looking, squeaky clean. I absolutely hate it. But there are some things in this movie that are kind of respectable. The kills, which I'll talk about in just a second, but you know, we get some returning characters as well. I mean, yeah, we get Alex Vincent back as Andy Barclay for the first time since 1990. So something to be said about that. A legendary horror character just in general, but we kind of get to see what he's up to in life. You know, the movie opens with him having dinner with this girl that it seems like he likes. And she's like, yeah, I Googled you. And yeah, I'm kind of concerned. That's weird. So I think we should break up. You know, Andy, I've said this before, but probably doesn't help that you have like a shrine of assault rifles in your dining room that are all lit up in a glass case that everyone can see. You know, kind of makes you look a little weird and paranoid. Like, okay, have that stuff, but put it away somewhere. Like, keep it somewhere where people can't see it. It's probably not going to help your love life. It's not really helping your story of making yourself not look like you're crazy paranoid. But I am interested in seeing more of the story after he pulls Chucky's head out of that safe. And the practical effects there are pretty good. The animatronics are pretty good with Chucky's head. You know, so I'm kind of interested, like, okay, where is this going to go? So obviously, though, this movie takes place after Curse. So up until this point, Nika has been locked up, and now Nika is being transferred to a medium security hospital, prison, asylum type place. And they go this route early on, right as she gets into her new room. She's there with one of the people that works there, and they're like, and she's like, "Oh, that's weird. There's no cameras in here." And he's like, "Yeah, this is a medium security place. We don't do cameras in the room." And is that a real thing? Let me know in the comments if you work in a place like that. But that just seems like a cheap way to have Chucky just walk around this place, killing everybody with nobody noticing, nobody able to trace down who's really doing this. It just feels kind of cheap to me. But one thing I will say about Cult of Chucky is not a great movie by any means, but the kills and the emphasis on practical gore I do respect. And I watch the unrated version typically. I think that's the only version I've really ever seen of this movie, and it gets pretty damn gory at times. I mean, there's like screws going through the back of people's heads and out their eyes. People are getting their heads crushed. We get a similar kill to Bride of Chucky with the glass falling down and that lady getting chopped the hell up. Like, there's quite a bit of gore in this movie. It's not amazing kills or amazing gore. It's not super memorable. Like, if I make a list of some of the best kills in slasher movie history, None of the kills from this movie will be on there, but they do have a lot of practical stuff. And I think the practical work, the aesthetic of it and the way they pulled it all off, it's actually pretty effective and looks pretty good in my opinion. But one thing that really hurts this movie for me is we spend way too much time with the other patients in this hospital prison thing. First of all, the acting is horrible, but also their stories are just dumb and not interesting at all. We have one of them that thinks the doll, the good guy doll, is her baby because she murdered her baby. We've got another guy who's like split personality. It's just dumb. I have no interest in watching those characters at all. The acting really across the board in Cult is terrible from pretty much everybody. We've got this psychologist, doctor guy also we have to follow throughout a big chunk of this movie, who's also a bad actor. Yeah, he gets killed in a brutal way. Nika gets out of her wheelchair, not surprisingly, when she has Chucky's soul put into her, and stomps this guy's head out. But speaking of that moment, I hate it when Nika starts to do like a Charles Lee Ray accent, and it just ends up sounding like some cheap wannabe New Jersey slow talking mafia member. It's like, no, stop doing that. And then, but we do get more Tiffany, some more Jennifer Tilly in this movie, which I guess adds a little something extra to this one. I mean, her role is not great. They don't utilize her character that much. They also don't really utilize Andy very well either, despite the fact that I do kind of enjoy that moment when Andy has like the hidden gun inside of that Chucky, because you're like, what the hell is he doing? He's like jamming his arm into Chucky. Like, is that how he's going to kill it? Is he trying to do like a Jason Voorhees thing and rip out his heart? But that's kind of a cool little surprise there in that moment. But I do think, like, on its face, this is a pretty good setting for a Child's Play movie. This mental hospital that could be dark and eerie and lit well and have good atmosphere. There's snow outside, which also adds a little something to it. Cold, isolated. Maybe you add in this element of like a record snowstorm, other help, other people, cops can't get in because the roads are completely foobar. But it's kind of a wasted setting in this movie because, like I said, it doesn't look good. It's way too digital. It's way too bright. It's stupid. But also, this movie's not scary at all. So if they would have made it scary and eerie and dark like other movies who have implemented mental hospitals and asylums in a better way, just take some ideas from those movies with the cinematography and other things. But yeah, Cult of Chucky, I have it number 5 in the franchise, above a bunch of other movies, obviously, but this is not a good movie. It's not a movie that I want to rewatch a lot. Now, with me saying this, you might think like, oh, he just hates the Child's Play franchise. I don't. I just think the newer movies are pretty damn bad. But yes, Cult has some returning characters, which is cool. Has some decent gore, which is cool. But again, bad acting. I hate the way the movie looks, and it's just not a good story overall. So yeah, there you go. Cult of Chucky coming in at number 5. All right, now next, all of the movies I'm going to talk about from 4 all the way down to 1, of course, are movies that do have rewatchability for me, and are movies that I consider to be good horror movies, good slasher movies. So coming in at number 4 is going to be Bride of Chucky from 1998, which, yeah, is a movie that I can have fun with. Not only are we adding a new doll into the mix, which becomes very, very iconic with Tiffany. We got Brad Dourif, of course, back in this movie as well, but Jennifer Tilly, her introduction in the franchise, who has become a horror icon in a lot of ways, definitely adds something to this franchise. I already mentioned her as well, but there's so much about this movie also that is just so Ronnie Yu, and there's something to be said about that. He also directed Freddy vs. Jason, and you'll notice a similar style to both of these movies. But anytime a director can make you immediately just recognize his style and his approach and his look to his movie, I think there's something unique about that, and it's actually like a look and a style that I do enjoy. But just feels so Ronnie Yu. If I didn't even know he was directing this and I watched it, I would definitely be like, oh, it kind of looks like a Ronnie Yu movie, just the way it all goes down. But of course, Bride of Chucky came out shortly after Scream. So yes, like I mentioned a second ago, very much has a Scream influence on this movie. Like We're not going to just make something that's super dark and scary and doesn't have any humor. No, there's definitely going to be some meta stuff. There's going to be way more humor than you have ever seen before in this franchise. This is on the heels, like I said, I mean, it's years after, but after Child's Play 3, which in a lot of ways has a lot of darkness to it, is very, very different than this movie. This very much feels like a totally different era for the Child's Play franchise, but I do think Ronnie Yu and the rest of the team, they were able to blend that really well, because that's a tough line sometimes to tiptoe. And if you do something wrong, you can completely fall off, and it just can be super campy and bad in the wrong way. But I do think he was able to blend kind of the kills and Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly and all what they're doing. I mean, we've got dolls having sex at one point in this movie. I'm all rubber, Tiff, but I think they were still able to blend, keeping the movie fun, keeping it lighthearted, keeping that kind of Scream vibe going on, but it still feels like a Child's Play movie. And I also think, I mean, there's something also that needs to be said about the look of Chucky. Not only just Tiffany, who's become iconic, but this look for Chucky with like the stitches and all of that after everything that happened in Child's Play 3 when he got cut the hell up. It's a very iconic look for the character. I would say a lot of people probably consider that their favorite look for the character. We still see the stitched up Chucky all over the place in the general, I feel like, zeitgeist of society. Now, with that said, I do think like Katherine Heigl and the other characters in this story we're also following, as we're still following these kids who are in love, who need to run away because their love and relationship is not approved of. That story, I mean, I feel like we could have followed some more interesting characters. That's not all that interesting. But with that said, I do like road trips in movies. I've always been kind of a sucker for road trips in movies. We see that in the Leatherface movie and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and so many other movies, of course. But like the constant, maybe it's just the evolution of the different like settings constantly changing. We're always on the go, being introduced to new characters. Like in this movie, you know, they're at like the Love Motel, which gives us some more kills. They're moving on and on and on and getting to the graveyard eventually. But I like that angle of the story. I also think, you know, like I said, this is very much a comedy movie at times, but they also add in some fun kills. Like when Chucky blows up that cop's car and then flips off the stoner. That's fun. But there's also, you know, the glass falling down on the people inside of that motel. Pretty funny moment. But some fun kills in this movie, so it's kind of that good like blend of brutality, but also humor and gore and things like that. But I like the ending of Bride of Chucky as well, as we're heading to the graveyard. You know, we've got that scene. It's kind of big and epic, almost like Jason Lives with the RV there. It's blowing up. You know, they're trying to get to the graveyard for this big climax. You know, the weather's going, the rain is coming, the wind is coming. They're at this graveyard. Very much feels like Jason Lives. But yeah, a pretty solid ending in this franchise. And overall, I mean, it's not like Bride of Chucky is my favorite slasher movie of all time or my favorite movie in this franchise. Obviously, I have it at number 4, but it's a rewatchable movie for me. It's a movie I can have some fun with. It's a fun era, the late 90s, Scream inspired. It's got some fun characters. I think Brad Dourif is still on point. Even though early in this movie, yes, there was a big gap between Child's Play 3 and this movie. So Brad Dourif, a little rusty with his voice acting in the early stages of this movie when, you know, Tiffany uses the old voodoo for dummies and brings him back. If you go back and rewatch it, you might notice what I'm talking about. Maybe that was filmed very early in production. He hadn't quite like warmed up back to the character and gotten into his rhythm again. It feels just a little off. But overall, great in this movie, Brad Dourif again, and Jennifer Tilly also. Just overall, Bride of Chucky, a fun movie in this franchise. Not great, but just a fun ride. All right, and moving right along to my top 3 movies in the Child's Play franchise. Coming up next at number 3 is going to be Child's Play 3 from 1991. And something about this movie is, I mean, this is the most hated movie in the franchise according to critics. I think it has like a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes, but critics hate Child's Play 3, but it's also the least financially successful movie out of the first 3 Child's Play movies. I'm sure that was a part of the reason why, you know, with the 4th movie in the franchise, it gave them that little extra kick in the butt to like kind of go in a different direction, of course, just so like looking back, they're like, that movie didn't do so well, let's try something new. But this movie is kind of a big risk. I mean, and I think they actually pulled a lot of it off. I mean, we're in a totally new setting. We're not back in downtown Chicago or anything like that. And also, it's a big time jump. We're kicking some of the old characters, the old actors to the side, and we're going with some new actors in this movie. Big risk. I mean, this takes place technically 8 years after Child's Play 2. So we've got a new Andy. You know, Andy is much older now. He's played by Justin Whalen, who I actually think Justin Whalen does a good job in this movie. He doesn't ruin the movie by any means. I think he continues to push the character forward. He's a character that I feel myself rooting for. He's a pretty good actor overall. Also, Child's Play 3, yeah, it's at this Kent military school. And for me, it kind of works. It also adds into just like the darkness of this movie too. Because I mean, I never went to basic or a military school or anything like that, but I imagine back in the early 90s, especially going to basic or going to a military school like this, where they basically rule over you and can almost do anything they want. I would imagine at some places, like there were probably some dark and not so great stuff going on, and you're just not really at times probably being treated all that well, especially considering that these mainly are kids that are here at the school. But with that said, I also kind of enjoy that it's got this like Full Metal Jacket inspiration going on. I mean, I grew up on some of the greatest military movies, war movies ever made, so that inspiration is pretty fun. You know, a great era, the 80s and the 90s for war and military movies. I mean, probably the best era for those movies just in general. But with Child's Play 3, I mean, one of the reasons why this movie isn't higher for me, I mean, it's top 3 in the franchise, which is pretty damn good. But I think in the middle of this movie especially, there are some slow moments. We spend a little bit too much time with like the disciplinary things. Hey, let's do some more jumping jacks. Hey, stop talking back to your drill instructor, this and that. A little bit too much time with that, but I think once again, Brad Dourif is very on point in this movie. Some great one-liners. Don't fuck with the Chuck. He's killing people and having a damn good time doing it. He's killing the barber, which is a fun kill. You know, he kills that guy by just giving him a heart attack. You get the garbage truck kill. There's so many other kills in this movie. Of course, kills toward the end with the paintball scene, which are a lot of fun also. But Child's Play 3 just has this unique ability to really feel like dark and unsettling and just kind of feel like eerie, and I think it's pulled off pretty well. They also lean a little bit into some of that stuff we saw in Child's Play 2 also. Like we get that scene in this movie with Mr. Sullivan, the CEO of the toy company. We're up at his, I would assume it's like his penthouse suite up there, and you can just smell like the cigars and the scotch and the leather. You know, everything's black. It's just like that early 90s baller ass apartment. That's a fun death scene, you know, the sleight of hands there with Chucky and the different toys ends up killing him. I mean, he's obviously an asshole, so it's a pretty satisfying death. And also in this movie, we implement not only just Andy, but we have a new kid now that he wants to swap souls with. So there's another angle added to the story there. Andy kind of has a little bit of a small love story in this also, but I think the ending is fun too at this carnival, this big climax inside of this like scary ride. You know, Chucky eventually is falling down like, and gets chopped the hell up. But I think the end is pretty fun and it kind of caps off a pretty solid Child's Play movie. You know, it's not like one of my favorite slasher movies ever made, but I do think it's a movie that has a lot of rewatchability for me. I have a lot of fun with, and I like that it's just dark and gritty like a Child's Play movie should be. But anyways, enough with Child's Play 3. Let's move right along to what movie I consider number 2 in the franchise for me, which is going to be Child's Play, the original from 1988. Which, yeah, these movies I have at 1 and 2. It was pretty tough because I do really enjoy the first 2 Child's Play movies. I think they're so iconic. They're so well made. They do everything that this franchise should do and what makes this franchise so unique very, very well in their own way. And the original Child's Play and Child's Play 2 have enough differences that I think they complement each other so damn well. And of course, the original Child's Play benefits from being the first movie in this franchise. There's that great mystery and that great ambiguity. We get some Halloween-like POV shots as, you know, Chucky is killing Maggie there. We don't really get to see exactly what's going on. I mean, you kind of obviously do know what's going on. I'm sure the trailers revealed some of that. I'm sure the poster in 1988 revealed some of that as well. But something to be said about the original Child's Play is that I think it's probably the scariest movie in this franchise, whether you're really scared by Chucky or not. I mean, I don't really think Chucky is all that scary, but if I were to pick a scary movie in this franchise, it would probably be the original, just because there's so much darkness and eeriness, and the way the movie's shot, I think it's great. There's so much with this movie that I think they do really well. I also think something they do really well in this movie is they really make you empathize and root for these characters. Unlike the remake, which I don't think they did very well, you really do. And I think a big part of that is just because the cast in the original Child's Play is incredible. I mean, Catherine Hicks, enough can't be said about her as Karen Barkley in this movie. A mom who clearly has been through some shit you want to root for, is working hard, seems like a great mom, and doing what she has to do to try to keep her son happy and keep her house, in one piece. And then another character, and I've mentioned this briefly before on my channel, but another character who does not get enough credit in the genre, does not get enough credit in this movie for how good he does, how good of a job he does in this movie, is Chris Sarandon as Detective Mike Norris. I think he's great in this movie. Really compliments Catherine so well, because Catherine now, once Chucky's revealed, 100% obviously believes in this whole thing, and of course is going to be more likely to believe her son's story a little bit anyways. But Mike is like this, grizzled cop who's seen tons of shit. He wants to see evidence. Don't come up, with these crazy ghost stories or whatever. Like, show me some evidence, or else I'm not going to give you my time of day. I'm tired. I'm busy. Move along. But then we get those moments where he suddenly starts to realize that Karen actually might be right. And I can't believe I am possibly thinking this. And I think his reaction and his acting is great in those moments. We get that fun little car scene with him and Chucky. He's fighting off Chucky. That's fun as hell. But of course, then Alex Vincent, also as Andy, is great. A great child actor in this movie as well. And I also need to mention this, but I think there's so much about this movie, and in the second movie as well, that makes me, as a dad of two small kids, a 5 and a 7-year-old, it makes just me almost hate the movie in a funny way, but it makes me so uncomfortable because this kid, Alex Vincent just does a great job portraying this likable, nice kid who wants to be so good for his mom. He brings her breakfast and does these other things, but gets blamed for everything, man. People think this kid is crazy, and you just really feel for this kid, and that hurts, And that emotional feeling you get from this movie, at least I get from this movie, I think is just very well done. I also think, of course, something that's important in this franchise and what makes Chucky iconic, it's like Freddy Krueger, like I've already said, blended the scary side with the humor and the wit. He's going to kill you and laugh his ass off at the same time. Arguably the best performance from Brad Dourif in this entire franchise. Of course, we see him in the opening stages as a human. That's also great too. We get to see him in the shootout there, which is a lot of fun. Great opening for this movie. Really hooks me in for the rest of this movie. But yeah, the wittiness, the one-liners and things from Charles, from Chucky, I think is great. But also, one of the most iconic moments in this entire franchise takes place in this movie when Chucky reveals himself to Karen. That's a moment in horror that I'll never forget. It's a moment I've scared the shit out of my sister, my younger sister, who's 8 years younger than me, many times when she was a kid. But Karen right there, noticing that Chucky does not have any batteries inside of him. What? Holy shit. And then he falls down, rolls under the couch. And then that great moment there, talk to me, and then he comes alive, and it's just pure madness after that. I think it's an all-time just iconic scene in the genre, which is a great moment in this movie. The look of Chucky is also great, scary, eerie, weird looking in this movie too. Yeah, there's some janky moments where Chucky's animatronics and stuff. It's 1988, it's fairly early in the franchise. Does not look all that great. Like when he's going to visit the guy who taught him voodoo, there's some moments there that look kind of cheesy and whatnot. But I also think the ending to the original Child's Play, the shootout there in the apartment, they're shooting him. He's still coming, little jump scares, and Chucky just looking all beat up and just shot to hell and messed up. Looks great. It's the original Child's Play. There's a reason why this movie helped catapult this into a franchise all these years later, because it's great. It's gritty. It's in Chicago. It's cold. It's scary. It's got great mystery. Great cast. What a great movie. The original Child's Play could be number one in the franchise if I'm feeling differently. But yeah, as of right now, I have the original at number 2. And yes, of course, coming in at number 1 in the Child's Play franchise for me is going to be Child's Play 2 from 1990. And this movie might not be as maybe dark or as maybe scary as the original, but for me, this is the most fun movie in this entire franchise. And I don't just mean fun and like because it has so much humor and it's just kind of crazy and all over the place. It's just the movie in the franchise that has the most rewatchability for me because it just has all of those great elements that a great slasher movie should have. And I feel like too in this movie, Chucky is just a little bit more ramped up because he's just extra pissed off about what happened in that original movie. He was probably thinking he wasn't going to have that much trouble putting his soul into this kid's body, but yeah, a lot of trouble, obviously. So he's clearly very pissed off. They do a great job kind of revealing the character in this movie. It's almost like Jason Lives. A lot of shout outs to Jason Lives apparently in this video, but the electrocution, they bring him back. I mean, maybe, I guess this company was kind of hard up on money. Like how tight was the budget? Why don't you just go shred this doll just to be safe, or who gives a shit? It's all beat up. Why put the work into putting this thing back together? I mean, couldn't you just use another doll? Aren't there plenty of them? But anyway, still a fun moment there, bringing it back with the electricity, killing that guy. You know, you've got the angle too of very much, we're diving a little bit more into the company that makes these good guy dolls. We're diving a little bit more into that 80s consumerism, children's marketing and stuff, the corruption with some of these toy companies trying to exploit parents, exploit kids. And I like the fact that they go into that more, which makes the movie feel darker at times too. And now at this point in the story, Andy, it sucks that Karen didn't come back. Yeah, but he's with this new family, his foster family as well. But I think the look of Chucky also in Child's Play too. I mean, it's just as good as the original Child's Play. Very similar, of course, but we also get some additional looks to the Chucky character, which have became iconic that I really love. Like at the end of the movie when he's got his hand that's chopped off and he has to shove the knife into his arm. So he's got this knife arm, knife hand things going on where you see him kind of walking there with that, which looks really, really great. But also just speaking of Chucky, this is arguably like the best blend of a character that is scary and dark and unhinged, but also with the humor, the one-liners, and the fun angles of the character too. Like, you know, damn women drivers, but he is going to just mess up everything here for not only Andy at his school, in his life, with the foster parents, but for everybody else in his way. He is going to ruin your life, and he is going to laugh his ass off at the same time. And like the original, and I already mentioned this a second ago with the original, but man, it is brutal to watch Andy have to go through the things that he does in this movie, more so than the original. He is getting blamed for literally everything at school. And it makes you just, I mean, especially as a dad, I feel like, makes you really feel for this kid. It really hurts, man. But along the way, we do meet one of the greatest characters in this entire franchise. We meet Kyle along the way, played by Christine Elise, who I think, like I said, one of the best characters in this franchise, really does a great job in this movie, really complements Andy's character in a lot of ways, is great at the end of this movie, helping to fight off Chucky. Love that moment when she realizes, like, damn, Andy was telling the truth this entire time. This is crazy. And then goes to try to find this thing in the trash can. Don't know how Chucky got out of a tin trash can without making any noise, but still goes upstairs. You hear the sewing machine from the foster mom off in the distance, finds her brutally massacred, and then that fun little scuffle there with Chucky also. But yeah, Kyle, great job in this movie. Really elevates this movie a lot. And speaking of kills, I think the kills in this movie are also fun. That kill there with the teacher, with the ruler, like you've been a naughty teacher, you know, that kind of a scene there. Popping out of the closet, good jump scare. That's a lot of fun. The look on Chucky's face, how he's just so pissed off. And then he just starts beating this lady to death with a ruler. Is it believable? Yeah, probably not, but I like the way it's pulled off and I like the way it's shot. How we see that shot outside of the window, you can see the ruler going down and the dramatic music. And every time he hits her, it zooms out and out and out. I love that moment. The guy getting the eyeballs, you know, the good guy doll eyeballs into his eyes in the factory at the end. But speaking of the factory at the end, this is the best ending in this entire franchise. I love this ending. It feels just so like big and blockbuster for this franchise. Great set design at this factory with all the different dolls and the shelves and the conveyor belts, and they're trying to get through this stuff and not get hurt, and Chucky's trying to kill him at the same time, and then they're able to melt Chucky in like the liquid rubber shit or whatever it is, plastic, whatever you want to say. You know, Chucky gets blown up at one point like a balloon, and it, like I said, during that point, Chucky gets his arm ripped off, has to put on the knife, and it's just great stuff at the end of this movie, man. From that moment where Kyle sees Andy running into the toy factory with Chucky on his back, and we just pan down and we see the factory, and we're heading in. I just buckle up, and I'm like, hell yeah, this is going to be a great scene. And it is. Best ending in the franchise for sure. But yeah, Child's Play 2, great slasher movie, great version of Chucky, great characters, great new setting. I mean, it's hard to build off of an iconic original movie, and they do a damn good job building off of the tone, the humor, and just the scary elements in that original movie. So good. Child's Play 2, like I said, the original is great as well, but I do feel like Child's Play 2 is my favorite movie in the franchise. But anyways, everybody, again, let me know down in the comments down below what you think about this franchise, how you rank this franchise. I read every single comment, so I really do want to hear what you guys say. But thanks so much for watching my ranking of the entire Child's Play franchise. If you want some more videos from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. If you don't want to miss future videos on the channel, the best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe. Also, if you enjoyed this ranking of the Child's Play franchise, leave a like on it, guys. Really does help me out a lot. All of my social media links are down below in the description. Instagram, Patreon, Twitch, stuff like that. So anyways, everybody, thanks again for watching. Really do appreciate it. My name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.